What's up, everybody? Do you want to learn how to defend against early aggression? Or maybe you want to see how to establish map control in your games? You want to learn how to fight around your trebuchets? Welcome to another Age of Empires 4 ranked game review, where we're going to cover all three of those topics and more. So let's get into it. I played this game on the Japanese in teal. Once again, I am playing against the French in red. Now, I used my Japanese fast castle build order for this game. I'm not going to cover too much about the build order. If you want to learn how to reproduce it, I have a video out on that, so go ahead and check that out. That will probably be linked in the description. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and speed through the Dark Age here because not a whole lot happens besides scouting. It's a pretty conventional start to the game. I end up getting 10 sheep there. So if you remember me saying that 9 or 10 sheep means that you're pretty safe as far as making it to castle without having to worry about gathering berries or being set back, then you know that I am now set up for success. I think I will probably leave this whole game in 2 times speed just because it ends up being a pretty long game. It's like a 40-minute game, and I didn't want this to be a 40-minute video. But I'm just going to focus on all the strategic things that happen. So we are now in Feudal Age. He did go School of Cavalry. I had somebody recently go Chamber of Commerce against me, so I wanted to make sure that I knew what was going on in this game. He has the ability to produce knights right as he hits Feudal, rather than having to gather the wood to make a stable and then go knights later. So I know that he's going to be coming at me with some knights. He ends up getting 2 knights at and running toward my base. Meanwhile, I get a healthy amount of sheep. I get even more. So I know that this game is going to be pretty straightforward, and I'm going to have a good starting advantage getting into the game. So his knights start coming across the map. I actually see them with my scout. One thing I do against French is I typically like to run straight at their base once the Feudal Age starts, just because I know that I might see some units if they're running straight at me. I end up losing a villager here because I didn't pull it away back to the sheep as I should have. So he ends up actually getting a villager kill or 2, which is something that I did want to talk about. Don't give up when you lose a villager or 2. It's typically not that big of a deal. You don't want to lose them for free. But, you know, mistakes happen, and so just continue to play it out, make the best of it. I do end up getting a knight kill there, so it wasn't for free. It was 2 villagers, as you can see, against 1 knight. And I was actually slow to produce this Uma Bannerman here. Normally that should come out right after 5 minutes, but in dealing with the knights and seeing them, I panicked and, you know, messed up my build order, which is something else that happens. So here, I'm just using the Bannerman to protect my villagers, my base. I end up mismicroing and dropping the knight here. But again, not a big deal. This is the chaotic early game that often tends to happen. You just got to continue to play it out. Another thing that I wanted to talk about real quick is when your opponent is playing an aggressive civilization like the French, once you know that there's knights out on the field, you need to make sure that you pay attention to where they go. I did have 2 outposts up, and you'll see I garrison those villagers very early here. That's something that should have happened with this villager up here so that I didn't lose it. But I garrisoned early here because I was aware he's got knights, so he's going to come attack my base. I need to constantly keep my eyes on the minimap to see when I get vision of the knights and just keep the villagers safe. I did hit my macro goals though, and I made it up to castle at about 8:45. So I'm now out on the map gathering relics. I am producing mounted samurai and rallying them out to where the relics are. And so now I'm just going to play a very calm, very collected game here where I start building up some army, make sure that I get my base protected, and just play against the French as I normally would. So I'm going to be bringing my samurai out over to the relics that I can see. He is bringing all of his units forward. And something that I want to talk about, I'm actually going to slow the game down here for a minute, is right about now, you see he's completely run out of food. He actually ran out of the berries here as well, so he moved all of his villagers over to these berries. Just a couple of seconds ago, all 16 of these villagers were not doing anything, so he wasn't gathering any food at that point in time. And that's not a mistake that I caused him to make. This is a mistake that he made on his own, and that's something that will happen in your games often. One thing that I had someone say as a comment in one of my videos is that the only reason that I really won is because, number one, I was playing a broken civilization, the Byzantines, and number two, that my opponent was playing a strategy that didn't make any sense. And to that gentleman, and to anybody that might think the same way as he does, I'd say welcome to the Platinum League. You know, where villager production gets dropped and people mess up their build orders or they don't have one in the first place. Strategic mistakes get made constantly. Too many villagers get put on one resource, the wrong units get built, timings get messed up, upgrades never get purchased. Like, this channel is not about perfect play because I'm not a pro player and I probably never will be. I have a full-time job and a wife, and both of those things come before this game. And on top of that, I have other hobbies that I like to do. I like to go to the gym, and I play a lot of chess. So I imagine that I'm very similar to many of you that have responsibilities but want to be able to enjoy Age of Empires content when you have the time to learn the game at your own pace. And that's really what this channel is about. It's about making slow and steady improvement regardless of what your current life circumstances are, and really just enjoying the game along the way. So if you're a Diamond or a Conqueror player, I might not have much to offer you, but that's okay because my videos are for the majority of the player base that kind of sit in the center of the bell curve and, you know, want to make slow and gradual, steady improvement. I really enjoy watching high-level pro players like, you know, Vortex and Demu and Beastie, but their games aren't really relatable to mine. At the top level, it's all about the meta and what the best thing is to play today, but in my games, I consistently make mistakes, and so do all of my opponents, and that leads to just a lot of variety in all of my games. It means that interesting stuff that will never be repeated happens in every single game, and that's a lot of fun. So you can watch pro players to learn how to min-max every detail of your gameplay, and then you can come here to learn how to apply those things in games that actually look like yours. And I think that way we all win. Anyway, enough of my soapbox. Back to the game. A fight just happened here. Where he built some rams, he had knights and archers that were sitting, and I won that fight, specifically because I'm building two types of units. I'm building mounted samurai as a sort of front line, and then I'm building Onimusha behind them, and the Japanese have access to one of the strongest anti-knight units in the game, which is the Onimusha. They're anti-heavy cavalry, which means they run at the same speed as knights, so the knights won't be able to catch them as long as you micro them properly, but then they deal bonus damage against the knight. So if you have a little bit of a front line to sit in front of them, you can only micro the Onimusha, and you will win your fights because of how much damage they do to knights. One thing that this leads to that I do want to cover as a strategic concept is the idea of map control. It's that as you get out into the middle game, now that the relics are falling off of the map slowly and we're transitioning into direct fighting, because I have built units that are strong and counter the enemy units, I now have the ability to take my army and run all over the map and see what is happening. And that's all because of the specific units that I built. So one thing that you have to learn based on what civilizations you like to play and what your opponents are doing, scouting is very important so that you know what's happening, but then building the right units that allow you to take control of the game is a really important skill to learn. And this is something that I'm constantly working on. This is where I make a lot of mistakes. But every once in a while I have a game like this that kind of showcases just how important it is to have the right units, and when you do have the right units, you can really capitalize on it. My entire goal was to just run around the map. I'm not looking to take a direct fight with the knights when I don't have my Onimusha, even though maybe I could have because I have more army. But I'm just looking to see what's out there. Where are his villagers? Where is he walling off? What kind of pocket resources is he trying to get onto? and what units, what is his army composition, so that I can counter it, so that if I do end up in a fight, I'm gonna be in a good place. All things that you want to consistently think about in your own games as they are progressing. Because what I'm thinking about right now is I just got everything walled off, so he can't just freely walk into my base. I have a good handle on resources. I'm actually ahead in villagers. Wasn't sure about this in game, but I slowly start taking advantage. And then in just a couple of minutes, I'm actually going to macro toward a second town center. Once I have the 350 stone, and then I will end up putting a second town center right here. One thing that happens here is I end up diving his base, getting some kills, and all of this ended up being really good. I get a couple of villager kills, not a ton, but I end up doing some serious damage to him. Now, one mistake that I make here is not using the knights. Whenever you have cavalry and you are diving the enemy base, you don't want to typically fight for as long as you can underneath the town center. You want to take your units and go look for their economy. I could have killed all of these villagers right here using the knights, like ignored their knights and just gone and killed the villagers, and then come back here and gone after these villagers, and then come back here and gone after these villagers. And if I had just used my knights to run around his base and be a nuisance, then I wouldn't have lost all of those units. This trade was definitely bad for me. It's psychological damage, though, which I have talked about in several of my games. A lot of the times you will get an advantage, not because you did something spectacular, but because whatever you did was unexpected and you threw your opponent off their game, which is a good thing to do. But instead of diving and losing my entire army, I could have attacked all of these pocket resources, which is something that I should have done but did not successfully do. So now I'm thinking, okay, I had map control. I definitely had it. And now I gave it away because I threw all of my army in the trash, and now he's got knights that are out on the map. So if I had not done that, then I would still have a lot of map control, and he wouldn't feel free to run around with all of these units. But I do have military ready. I'm watching what he's doing. I end up getting this quick wall off, which really saves me, because I think that if he had made it through this wall, I would have been in some serious trouble. He could have run through the back of my base and done what I tried to do, but much better. Mounted Samurai, if you're looking to play the Japanese, you play the Japanese yourself. Mounted Samurai are very good because of the armor block that they have. They can stop one attack. And I notice now that he's got this castle. So I'm now immediately thinking, okay, we're at the point in the game where I haven't already won the game. I haven't done enough damage to him that he felt the need to quit. And he's got a castle up. So I'm going to need to either ignore the castle and run around it, which is what I immediately try here. Let's just break open a second part of his base and go see if we can do some damage where the castle is not. Or, if that is unsuccessful, I'm going to have to plan to play around siege during the late game, which I do a little bit of damage. I run circles around his base. I'm still rallying army, even though I went up to Imperial. I've never stopped really building military. And then I'm thinking about where am I going to expand to? What pocket resources am I going to go to? I was looking at this gold. I was thinking about how I would get to this gold eventually. I did not see that he was starting to wall this off and take control of it, which is kind of funny because if you look at the way that I walled, I kind of was very close with it around my base, just protecting all of the stuff that was relatively close by before expanding outward. Whereas he walled all the way around the outside of his base, and this is not something that is very smart to do because you typically can't protect this much space. You have to expand in a kind of controlled way in order to actually maximize the amount of resources that you take. It makes no sense for you to come out here and try and take this gold and this gold when you have golds that are on this side of the base that are, number one, already defended because he already has the walls up, and because these resources are just closer to his base, so any army that he builds is going to get there faster, versus out here, is exactly the opposite. This is my side of the map, so I should have control of this. I did not have good enough scouting. This outpost probably should have been built a long time ago, so I didn't know that this was happening, so he gets to do this for free. But I am slowly but surely kind of getting ahead. with how I'm playing the game. He never went second town center, which was probably a mistake on his end, but I did. And so I have double his economy. And so you'll see I slowly start to build up just a massive amount of resources. Typically during the early game, you want to make sure that you don't have resources like this in the bank. But as the game gets later, as you start getting toward max population, you start getting all of your upgrades, which another huge mistake that I made here that I kind of talked about earlier, I didn't get upgrades. Look at how many resources I have, and look at how many economic upgrades I have. 0. That's a huge problem. I win this game, but that's something that probably should have costed me the game. He got all of his upgrades, military and economy, and I didn't. And that should have been a huge problem, but I won this game ultimately because of just a little bit stronger macro play across the board. And that's one thing that I absolutely love about this game. It's not about one solid sweeping victory. This game is very much like chess. It is a battle of ideas back and forth where one idea typically does not win you the game. It nets you an advantage that allows you to then build an advantage somewhere else. And the winner of the game typically is the one that has a multitude, several winning ideas that just slowly stack on top of each other until eventually that advantage becomes high enough that it leads to the end of the game. This is the point in the game where we can talk a little bit about how to play around trebs. This is something that I am learning myself. I have absolutely failed in the past to do this. So that's one of the reasons that I really enjoyed not only playing this game, but reviewing it. Because I have had many games where I get to a point in the game like this where it's 30 minutes in and my opponent is building castles and I'm building castles and I either fail to build trebs or I build trebs and then I all in, or I just get too aggressive and I fight in the wrong spot. I don't take the right kind of fight and it leads to me just losing the game kind of within a minute. I go from having a military advantage to all of my army dies underneath a castle, and then they push with their army and I lose the game on the spot. Whereas that didn't happen this game. So one thing that you want to make sure that you do if you're not very experienced with trebs, or you just, want to get a little bit better with them, is identify who has the advantage in this game. I know that I'm ahead based on everything that's happened, based on the fact that I have taken all of the sacred sites, based on the fact that I have pushed him off of resources that are here, and I've done some damage to him. I know that I'm ahead. I can just feel it. I also have a healthy number of villagers, and I'm at max population, right, with all of these resources in the bank. So I can just feel that I'm winning this game, and that means that I don't need to dive him at all. I can play this very slow and steady. I can just grind him down, not knowing what his resources are. If I had known that he had so many fewer villagers and he had so many fewer resources, I might have just sent all of my units in to kill everything that's here, just because I'm going to be able to replace my army 2 times over. And he will not be able to replace his army at all. But what I do here is just very calm and collected. Get a couple of trebs, start breaking this down. He's going to have to bring villagers in order to defend it, and I'm going to slowly whittle away at whatever stone he's collected. So he's going to have to go gather more stone, or he's going to run out and this will fall. The only thing that I need to do on top of that, I have 2 trebs here. I wanted to get to 4. I typically like to have 3 or 4 trebs, depending on the situation. If they have a lot of castles, which the French like to build a lot of castles because they get the production bonus from the buildings that are underneath the castle, I anticipated that there was going to be more than 1 castle, so I thought, you know what, let's get 4 trebs out and let's just start sieging everything down. So I click the trebs, I hit G, which is attack ground, and then select where the castle is, so it'll just stay there. And then I'm keeping all of my units nearby. I want to keep them right on top of the trebs. I don't need to send them anywhere because he has to deal with these trebs before anything else in this game happens. He might send some units over to raid other sides of my base or try to break into my base, which is why I started putting castles up. I put one there, I put one here, I put one here. I was actually going to put another one on this side so that it would be even harder. But he is feeling the pressure, and so you'll notice he sends all of his knights over this way. I did see that he had built these walls. I was ready for this to happen, so the second that I see him come through the gates, I bring my knights over to make sure that they cannot touch the Trebs. He tries to run around. I've got all of these Onimusha, which are just shredding this, and all I have to do is push them away from this side. I have both sides covered. Now the units immediately come back, and we're just going to continue to protect the Trebs. Eventually, I know that this will fall. So you see here, I'm not diving at all. I'm just kind of playing back. The ball is in his court. This is a one game for me, unless he manages to do something to change that. So I don't need to force any issues. I don't need to do anything here except sit and make sure that my Trebs stay alive. So I just continually push everything off. I think I selected all army here, which is why the Trebs started moving. That's a habit that I'm trying to get away from, is using select all army all the time. I like that button just because it means that I don't end up having a couple of units that are randomly just standing around doing nothing. But just keep your army right on top. You'll see I have these units here, making sure that nothing comes through this side. He's never going to be able to push through this side, and then anytime I get too close, I'm pulling back. I do make the decision here to end up eventually diving this keep, just because I thought here for sure that thing was just going to die, and it takes a little bit of time to really get it down. So this could have been kind of bad. I needed to wait maybe another 15 to 20 seconds before diving. But I do end up getting this down. I deal some damage to him, cost him some army, so he's having to spend all of his resources. In the meantime, I'm just continuing to build up my own. I think it's kind of funny that we're now getting to the point where I'm maxing out all of my military upgrades, and I still don't have a single economy upgrade. That's something that I'm definitely gonna have to make sure never happens again. So don't imitate that. But if there's one thing you can take away from this game, it's that when you get into situations like this and you have max population, you have Trebs out on the field, siege, play around the siege. Just utilize this siege to start destroying their base, creating weaknesses. And the goal here is not just to destroy this stuff, but it's to push in and start destroying the rest of his economy, everything that he has. And I think it's right here. This building goes down. He has very little army, and he knows that I have all of this army right here, so he ends up calling it. Anyway, I hope that you all enjoyed this game. I hope that you found this beneficial. If there's something that I could have done better, if this is a format that you guys like, if you like the games that are kind of more sped up for most of the game, or if you don't like that and you think that I should play it at one-time speed and just let a 40-minute game be a 40-minute game, I am more than happy to do that. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.